There is a kind of silence that doesn't feel like peace. It feels like a loaded gun between two people smiling politely. A silence that trembles under the weight of things unsaid, unfelt, unfinished. Imagine this. A woman walks into a room full of strangers. She doesn't know anyone. Yet, her eyes lock with his. A man sitting by the window, alone, not smiling. And in that first second, something ancient stirs. Something electric. Something familiar. She's never met him before. But her body remembers. A wound does. It doesn't feel like love. It feels like a collision. Like recognition. Like danger disguised as destiny. She tells her friends later, "I don't know what it is about him. There's just this chemistry." But what if chemistry isn't about compatibility? What if what we call attraction is often our trauma whispering? This feels like home. Not because it's safe, but because it's familiar. Carl Jung once wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And so she walks toward him, not knowing she's walking into a reenactment, not knowing that what pulls her in is not love, not even desire, but a pattern, a bond forged in shadow. So the question is no longer, why do I keep falling for the wrong people? The deeper question is, what part of me believes this pain is love? The room disappears. What remains is the echo, not of his voice, but of the silence inside her that has waited for this exact wound. They sit across from each other, coffee cooling between hands that ache to touch yet never do. And still, it feels magnetic, but not in the way of love blooming. Rather, as if two ghosts have recognized each other inside the living. She wonders, why him? Why this specific ache? Jung called it the shadow, the hidden part of us we reject, bury, forget. It is the anger we don't admit, the grief we inherited, the fear we never dared to name. It is everything unlived, waiting for a stage. And love, or what we think is love, often becomes that stage. The meeting of two personalities, Jung wrote, is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But not all transformations are gentle. Some feel like chemical burns. You see, we don't fall in love with a person. We fall into the mirror they unknowingly hold up to our soul. And in that mirror, our shadows dance. We project. We say, he's cold, just like my father was. We say, she abandons me, like everyone else did. We don't realize that what we chase is what we never healed. A woman once shared with me, I didn't fall in love with him. I fell into something. A pattern, a loop. And every time he pulled away, I wanted him more. But not because I loved him, because I was reliving my childhood. That's the unconscious at work. Like an ancient river, it pulls us back to where we were wounded. Not to suffer again, but perhaps to see it. To finally bring the light of awareness into the dark. Because the unconscious doesn't speak in words. It speaks in attraction, in anxiety, in repetition. It chooses the man who is emotionally unavailable, because that's who taught you what closeness feels like. It makes your heart race for the woman who runs hot and cold, because inconsistency once meant love in your childhood home. So what we call chemistry might be trauma's way of keeping you in the familiar. It feels like fate, but it's a reenactment. The soul seeks healing, yes, but the shadow, it wants to be seen, and the only way it knows how is to dance in the arms of another who mirrors it. So here's the haunting truth. Every relationship is a dialogue between shadows, long before it becomes a bond between souls. And if we do not learn this language, we will mistake pain for passion, and shadows for soulmates. They met in late October. The kind of season that makes everything feel like it could be the beginning of a poem or the ending of a promise. Her name was Elise. His was Mark. And from the start, nothing made sense, yet everything felt inevitable. They would talk for hours, nights collapsing into mornings. Mark would confess things no one had ever heard. Elise would laugh at jokes not even finished. Their connection? Unexplainable. But it didn't last, not in the way she thought it would. Mark disappeared for 3 days, then returned with flowers and apologies laced in silence. He'd hold her like he was drowning, then vanish like he never knew her. Pull, push, warmth, distance, a pattern wrapped in confusion. And still, she stayed. Why? Because her nervous system mistook inconsistency for intensity. Because every time he returned, it felt like being chosen again, even if it was only temporary. Carl Jung understood this all too well. He knew we are rarely drawn to what is healthy. Instead, we're drawn to what feels familiar, even if it's what once hurt us. The greatest tragedy of the family is the unlived lives of the parents, Jung wrote. And sometimes, that tragedy echoes in their children's love stories. Elise grew up with a father who would disappear into work, into silence, into alcohol. He was never cruel, just absent. And when he did return, he'd bring her little gifts, tokens, proof perhaps that he still loved her, in his own broken way. So when Mark would pull away, Elise felt the same ache. And when he came back, she mistook it for redemption. What looked like love from the outside was actually a reenactment of being seen, then forgotten, held, then abandoned. Mark, too, had his ghosts. He had learned early that emotional closeness was dangerous. His mother, unpredictable, overwhelmed, always crying, had made him the keeper of her pain. So now, as a man, when things became too emotionally charged, he withdrew, not out of cruelty, but protection. From the chaos closeness once brought him. Elise chased, Mark ran, then returned. And the cycle spun like a wheel carved in childhood. This is the anatomy of shadow bonds. One person unconsciously seeks repair through pursuit. The other seeks safety through avoidance. They are not playing games. They are playing out patterns, old as the wounds that made them. And this is why love often feels like madness. Because no one taught us that intimacy would awaken our oldest injuries. We don't just fall in love with someone. We fall into their wounds. We press against each other's scar tissue and call it fate. But perhaps what we really need is not someone who makes our heart race, but someone who helps it rest. And until we recognize this, until we stop calling emotional chaos passion, we will keep searching for home in the very places we once lost ourselves. There were nights Elise couldn't sleep. She'd replay their conversations in her mind, searching for the moment it shifted, the moment he began pulling away again. Mark never said goodbye. He just stopped replying. Not cruel, just vanished. But always, always, he came back with those eyes, soft with regret, his arms open, but his heart locked tight. And Elise welcomed him again, every time, because a part of her believed, if I can just love him enough, he won't leave. But this is the trick of the unconscious. It convinces us that love must be earned, that we must prove we are worthy of staying for. Jung said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. Mark was avoiding his, through detachment. Elise was avoiding hers, through obsession. They were two halves of the same wound. What felt like romantic unpredictability was actually emotional unavailability masked as depth. Mark mistook intensity for intimacy. Elise mistook absence for importance. And so, the chemistry that first brought them together was really a collision of unmet childhood needs. Let's pause here. Ask yourself, have you ever been with someone whose attention felt like oxygen, but whose absence felt like drowning? Have you ever rationalized emotional crumbs as a feast? Because you were starving for affection as a child? That's not love. That's trauma repetition. The push-pull dynamic between Mark and Elise is not rare. In fact, it's astonishingly common. Psychologists call it the anxious avoidant trap. One partner craves closeness, but fears abandonment. The other fears engulfment and seeks space. They orbit each other in emotional panic. When one comes close, the other retreats. When the other retreats, the first one chases. And so, neither ever truly meets the other in the middle. They're not wrong for loving, but they are trying to find healing through each other, instead of within themselves. And this is the unconscious playing director. Because we are not attracted to random people. We are attracted to what our unconscious believes will help us complete an unfinished story. Mark, without knowing, was Elise's chance to win the affection her father withheld. Elise, unknowingly, was Mark's chance to feel close to a woman without being consumed. But healing doesn't happen through reenactment. Healing happens when we step off the stage. And to do that, we must see the script we've been following. We must ask, am I loving this person? Or am I chasing the parent who never saw me? Am I protecting myself from pain, or avoiding the very intimacy I crave? For Mark and Elise, the bond was not a relationship. It was a lesson. And when it finally broke, when Elise stopped responding to his silences, when Mark felt the ache of space he could no longer control, they both stood in the mirror of their own making. Not all connections are meant to last. Some are meant to awaken. Some people are not soulmates. They are shadowmates. They arrive not to complete us, but to reflect the places we've yet to heal. So the next time someone pulls away after pulling you in, ask yourself, is this love, or is this chemistry built from pain? Am I chasing connection, or repeating rejection? Because unless we name the shadow, we will forever dance with its silhouette and call it romance. There's something haunting about being loved for the things you don't even see in yourself. More haunting still, when you realize they were never loving you. They were loving what you mirrored back to them. Elise stood in the doorway the last time Mark walked away. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. She just watched. And in his silence, something shattered. Not between them, but within her. That was the moment she realized she had not been loved. She had been projected upon. Carl Jung called this the process of projection, an unconscious transfer of one's own hidden parts onto another person. And in relationships, projection is not the exception. It is the beginning. We always see our own unavowed mistakes in our opponent, Jung wrote. It is the only way we can avoid seeing them in ourselves. In love, we fall, not for the person, but for the part of ourselves they bring into light. Mark had seen in Elise the softness he had long buried, her emotional depth, her patience, her vulnerability, all traits he had learned to reject in himself as signs of weakness. But in her, they felt safe, beautiful, even. So he chased them, not to hold her, but to reclaim what he had lost in himself. Likewise, Elise saw in Mark a calmness she mistook for strength. She didn't realize it was emotional suppression. She thought it was mystery. She believed it was masculine depth. But really, it was emotional disconnection dressed as control. And so, they fell for the illusions they built in each other. Shadow love is like that. It's not a meeting of souls. It's a mirror hall, endless, seductive, disorienting. Each person projects their unlived parts onto the other, and calls the echo connection. This is why it feels like chemistry, because we're not just seeing a person, we're seeing a missing part of our psyche in human form. Imagine this. You've buried your creative fire, your chaos, your wildness. You meet someone who lives it unapologetically. You feel magnetized. It's not them. It's your unlived life, standing in front of you, breathing. That's the seduction of the shadow. It makes us believe we need the other to feel whole. But the truth, they are just a map, pointing to the parts of ourselves we've disowned. So when Mark pulled away, Elise didn't just miss him. She missed the part of herself she had projected onto him. The fantasy of being enough to heal someone. The fantasy of being chosen. Of finally being the exception. But Mark wasn't seeing Elise. He was seeing the mother he couldn't soothe, and the boy who had to hold it all together. She was his mirror. He was her ghost. They were dancing through each other's pain, thinking they were dancing in love. This is the tragedy of shadow bonds. You are seen, but only partially, only through the lens of someone else's wounding. So many women, like Elise, are not loved for who they are, but for what they reflect. Her gentleness is seen as salvation, her nurturing as healing. But the moment she asks for something, the spell breaks, because to the wounded man, she is not allowed to need. She must only give. Likewise, so many men are loved not for their truth, but for their projected stoicism. He must be strong, composed, in control. But the moment he cries, the woman feels unsafe, because he no longer reflects her fantasy of the protector. This is not intimacy. This is illusion. Two people staring into mirrors, hoping to be loved, but only seeing fragments of themselves. Jung taught that we cannot love another truly until we retrieve the projections we've cast onto them, until we say, "This is mine, that is yours," because otherwise, we don't fall in love, we fall into a dream. And one day we wake up and realize, I wasn't in love with you. I was in love with how I felt when you reflected the part of me I was missing. So what do? We turn inward. We begin the sacred work of reclaiming our shadow, of holding our own grief, our own chaos, our own desire, without needing another to mirror it. Because love is not about finding your other half. It's about becoming whole enough that when love arrives, it's not a rescue mission, but a meeting of truths. Elise did this work. It took time, therapy, silence, 1,000 nights of wanting to reach out, but not. She stopped asking, why did he leave? And began asking, what part of me believed that love had to hurt to feel real? That's when healing begins. When we stop romanticizing pain, when we stop calling our shadows soulmates, and one day, when you've held your own chaos, when you've danced with your grief, when you've stopped waiting for someone to mirror your worth, someone will come along, and you will not feel obsessed. You will feel calm, like coming home, not to them, but to yourself. There is a look people give you, not when they love you, but when they worship what you represent to them. It feels like devotion, like reverence, like a cathedral being built in your name. But behind that gaze is a burden. You are no longer seen as human. You are a symbol. Carl Jung warned us of this temptation. The more idealized the image, the more oppressive its presence becomes. Elise experienced this after Mark left. He would still write sometimes, not to return, but to say strange, poetic things. No one has ever seen me like you did. You were my peace, my storm, my silence. But Elise wasn't those things. She was a woman, bleeding, healing, growing. What Mark missed was not her. It was the image she had come to represent. The one who might have saved him. The one who made him feel innocent again. And so, she became a symbol of something lost. A fantasy he could remember, without having to face the real woman he had abandoned. This is what happens when we love people for the archetypes they awaken in us, rather than for the soul they carry. Jung wrote extensively on anima and animus, the inner feminine in every man, the inner masculine in every woman. When we meet someone who reflects our inner opposite, there is a deep sense of recognition, a myth being lived. The man sees in the woman not just her, but his longing for softness, intuition, surrender. The woman sees in the man not just him, but her longing for strength, clarity, direction. And suddenly, love becomes epic, mythical, a story unfolding across lifetimes. But here's the danger. The more we project our inner ideal onto another, the less we allow them to be real. We fall for the goddess, not the girl. We worship the warrior, not the man. And the moment they show humanity, they tremble, doubt, withdraw. The illusion shatters. Not because they failed us, but because they stopped being our symbol. And what happens when a symbol breaks? We don't just feel disappointed. We feel betrayed. Not by the person, but by the image we painted of them. This is the silent trap of romantic idealization. It's not love. It's idolatry, and both men and women suffer for it. Men are taught to be protectors, providers, stoic giants. So when they feel lost, or weak, or scared, they hide it, because the woman they love sees them as her rock. And rocks don't cry, but rocks also don't heal. Women, on the other hand, are often turned into muses. Men say, "You make me feel alive. You're the only one who understands me." And so, her existence becomes a reflection of his longing, rather than her own becoming. If she dares to be messy, unsure, angry, she breaks the spell, and he withdraws, saying, "You've changed." But she hasn't changed. She just stopped performing. You see, love begins to die the moment we stop seeing the person and start seeing the projection. So what's the solution? It is to grieve the fantasy, to bury the symbol, and to meet the soul beneath it. To say, "I see your pain, not as a puzzle to solve, but as something sacred. I love your mind, not just your silence. I don't need you to be my hero. I just want your truth." Because the deepest intimacy doesn't come from being perfect. It comes from being fully seen, and still held. The lovers who survive are not those who never fail each other. They are the ones who stay, after the masks fall. They know that real love begins where the myth ends. Elise once said, "I thought I was his light, until I saw how terrified he was of it." He didn't want to be healed. He wanted to be saved, without changing. And Mark, he told a friend later, "She was too good. I couldn't stand the way she saw me, like I was worth something. It made me feel like a fraud." That's what happens when love becomes symbolic. It doesn't liberate. It traps. It demands roles, not reality. So the next time someone looks at you with awe, ask yourself, are they seeing me, or are they seeing who they need me to be? Because to be loved as a symbol is to always fear the moment you break character. But to be loved as a human, in your beauty, your chaos, your failure, is to be free. And isn't that what we wanted all along? Not to be worshipped, just seen. The room is quiet now. No echoes. No messages left unread. No fantasies asking to be resurrected. Just her. A woman sitting beside a window, watching the wind comb through leaves she once thought would never fall. And perhaps that's what healing is. Not a moment of triumph, but a slow exhale after years of holding your breath. For someone who was never coming home. They say love should feel like fire, but after the flames, what she longs for now is warmth. No sparks, no burning, just the kind of heat that stays. Mark still visits her in memory, not in his presence, but in her reflection. Because that's where he always lived, didn't he? In the projection, in the longing, in the version of him her heart built from scraps of silence. But she no longer keeps a shrine for him, not because she hates him, but because she forgave herself for confusing chemistry with truth. Because when trauma speaks, it whispers, "This is love," even when it's pain dressed in intensity. But real love doesn't whisper. It waits. It listens. It holds space. Carl Jung once said, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you." And isn't that what so many of us ache for? Not just someone to stay, but someone to understand the language of our shadow, to speak to the part of us we've hidden the longest. Elise doesn't seek that anymore. Not outside herself. She has learned the quiet bravery of solitude, the kind that comes not from isolation, but from no longer negotiating your truth, just to keep someone's attention. She walks now, not toward someone, but alongside herself. And in that gentle stride, a strange thing happens. The ache becomes a teacher. The silence becomes music. The wound becomes an opening. Not every bond is meant to last. Some are meant to awaken. Some arrive to set fire to our illusions, so that, from the ashes, we can finally meet ourselves, not as broken, but as beginning. So if you're here now, still listening, maybe you, too, have loved through a shadow. Maybe you mistook pain for passion, absence for depth, chaos for chemistry, and maybe, just maybe, you're ready to stop chasing the person who reflects your wound, and start becoming the one who can hold it. Because the love you seek is not in the other, it's in your willingness to stop performing, stop projecting, stop pleading, and simply be. To walk into a room, meet someone's eyes, and not ask, "Will you complete me?" but rather, "Can we sit here, whole, and not run?" No mirrors, no masks, just presence. So I leave you here, not with answers, but with this. What if the one you're waiting for is the part of you you've been avoiding the most? If you're still here, if these words stirred something, if you've ever loved in the dark, mistaken silence for mystery, longed for someone who never saw you fully, maybe this is the beginning. Maybe you'll stay for the next chapter, or maybe you'll just sit in this stillness a little longer. Either way, thank you for letting me speak to the part of you that already knew. Subscribe if you feel like this space reflects your own quiet search. We don't chase answers here. We walk through questions together.